Well, first of all, I heard about this whole opportunity cost thing most recently from Matt's book on the hamster wheel. So just saying.
Ouch.
Yeah, I had to throw a punch back because that was interesting on the customer experience with Twitter. So I wanted just to make sure, score back a point there.
Welcome to the Business Builder Throwdown.
That's why people call me. They're like, what do I do? First of all, how are you reading my mind?
With your hosts, Holly Jean Jackson and Matt Rouse. And moderator and referee, D. Scott Smith.
We have Matt Rouse and Holly Jean Jackson. Today we've got a special guest and the final judge and decision maker on who's going to win the Business Builders Throwdown, and that is Mark Lukes. So let's start, Mark. Let's have you introduce yourself first.
Absolutely. Mark Lucas. I'm the owner of Silent Marketing Solution, which is the nation's premier closing gift and long-term relationship tool for the real estate industry. We've been around for about a dozen or so years and work in, about 49 states and 12 to 13,000 agents. And yeah, love what we do. So we're a great company and love every day of it.
All right, 49 states. Well, that's pretty close. I'm sure you can close the deal on the final.
West Virginia. I don't know why West Virginia is so problematic for me, but it just is.
I had a friend in the Air Force from Monroe County in West Virginia.
There you go.
Yep, Harold Galen Butler.
Yeah,
that's the only place you could be from with that name. All right, and Holly Jean Jackson. Let's introduce yourself. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, Holly Jean Jackson. I'm your holistic business coach. I help health and wellness entrepreneurs and businesses scale their business to the next level, whether that's digital marketing, technology, strategy, and road mapping. Whatever it is, I'm here to help you hit that next level of achievement. Also the host of the Inspiration Contagion podcast. I'm super excited about today's Throwdown.
All right, and Matt, give us your introduction. Tell us who you are and what's going on in your world.
Sure. I'm one of the owners of Hook SEO Digital Marketing, as well as Hook Digital Marketing Canada. We are a multinational digital marketing organization with done-for-you marketing solutions for companies. I am also the author of Crush SEO. I am the author of Flattening the Hamster Wheel and Start Saying Yes, as well as the host of the Motivational Success podcast and the host of Digital Marketing Masters podcast.
And of course, the first step in flattening the hamster wheel is to remove the hamster.
That's right.
This is a family show. So yeah, I'm Scott Smith and a motivational listener. I am the co-host of The Experience Live with Russ and Scott. With that, let's go into today's show, and this is going to be an interesting one. Twitter has been around for a while, and for some people, they think maybe Twitter has become irrelevant. Maybe it's been pushed out of the mainstream in favor of doing nothing, in favor of some other choices. And so today, we're going to decide whether it is time to tweet or to not tweet.
I think the tweeter should start. Go for it, Matt.
That's right. The people who think Twitter is irrelevant are not good at it. So we'll just put that out there right now.
Fair enough.
Okay? There's a couple people in the world who are still very, very active on Twitter. There's people who want to complain about politics and reporters. And if you want to get your message out to the world, you want to get it to people whose job title is reporting things, right? So public relations is probably the most important part of using Twitter. The other really important part is it is a very simple, quick, and easy communication tool that you can also monitor. So you can actually use software to monitor that tool, and there's other ways to do it also, depending upon the size of your organization. You can also do what's called Twitter listening. So you can listen where people are having conversations about your brand or things that you're interested in or competitor brands. And all of that can be monitored with software, and then you can interject into a conversation with a real person. It's a fabulous way to get feedback, give feedback, and also it's one of the last remaining places where you can put a link on it and the platform itself doesn't reduce the amount of reach that you get with your posts. So I think just for those few reasons alone, Twitter is definitely worth the effort.
So first of all, I don't suck at using Twitter. To be clear, based on what my opponent just shared. So to be clear, I love Twitter. And if I were using Twitter as my approach today, I agree with what Matt is sharing. However, there's an opportunity cost with everything. So when I'm working with a client, a lot of things that I'm doing is really just putting things in the right order for them so that they know what to focus on today. The one thing I've realized most recently that people are forgetting in their business journey is their customer experience. So what I'm advocating for today for the Business Builder Throwdown is instead, I think that you should be investing your time to evaluate your customer experience. I recently heard this statistic that if you can up-level your customer retention rate by only 5%, that it gives you a profitability margin of 25 to 100%. So because our time is so valuable, I think you get a lot of bang for your buck when you're evaluating your customer experience, obsessing over them having an amazing journey so that you never lose another customer ever again. So that's my pro tip for today.
Okay, so but first of all, Holly, I have to ask, are those earrings made out of vibranium? Because they do look like the Captain America shield, and we may call that as an unfair advantage if you're using, alien technology in your defense today. So anyway,
they are not, but I'm glad you appreciate my style, Scott. That means a lot to me.
That's right. No mention of my fish shirt.
I don't know if we want to bring a dead fish.
It's mackerel
into your strategy, into your Twitter strategy. So I want to bring Mark in, Mark Lucas in for just a moment to get kind of an initial thought and to see where you're standing on Twitter. You've heard a couple of brief arguments here, but let's keep it going with your thought.
It's just not a platform that I can utilize effectively. Having said that, I still have a company Twitter account. We still tweet all the time for the agents that are still out there, and I still find it a valuable platform. To the point that if you suck, that's why you don't like Twitter. I don't think I suck either. But the one thing Twitter does do really, really well that nobody else has been able to keep up with is just keywords and hashtags and that. I mean, it from that perspective, it is still probably the premium platform in that narrow band.
I like this. I like this. You're running right to the middle, which is where we want our judge to be a part at the beginning. But at some point, you're going to have to tip one way or the other. I'm
going to let them talk me into it. We'll see. We'll see which way they're going to go.
Yeah. So Twitter, again, Twitter has been around for a while, has made a few changes, but it's one of those platforms that has stayed relatively stable in a lot of the ways that it works. They just expanded the characters a while back so that you could tweet a little bit longer because, I don't know, maybe tweeters were wanting a little bit more room. Matt, what are some of the strategies if you want to use Twitter to reach your target audience?
As you mentioned, Mark, hashtags are a fabulous strategy. So you can both follow hashtags and use hashtags. And following a hashtag means that when there's a popular post under that hashtag that you followed, that'll come up in your feed so that you can see it. You can also use software like Sprout Social or Hootsuite or something like that will track mentions of that hashtag. which you can also use for research. So you can search that hashtag and look and see what people are saying. So something might be like hashtag closing gift, right, for real estate. And maybe that's only something other people who sell closing gifts will use, but at least you can see what your competitors are saying, right? And also you can follow things like hashtag like real estate life, or any of the things that realtors are generally using. You can also go and find most of the realtors pretty easily, right? By just putting in like real estate agent, realtor, real estate sales, those kind of things, and just follow those people on those accounts. And by following them, some of them will just automatically follow you back. So you can immediately get some followers. Another thing that you can do is when you send out other forms of marketing, it's a really good idea to get your audiences on more than one platform. Because as we've said in a previous episode, you don't want to build your house on rented land, right? So you want to get people on your mailing list, or if you have them on Facebook, you want them also on your Twitter, on your Instagram, you want them on your YouTube, right? You want to get people following you on as many channels as possible. So you can mention, hey, you can follow us on Twitter, in your email marketing, or on your other platforms. And Twitter is also a really good place to kind of jump into other conversations. For example, Elon Musk today tweeted that Tesla is no longer going to accept Bitcoin as payment for their cars, which of course sent the cryptocurrency market into a fray. But immediately another brand put on, we would love to accept Bitcoin as payment if you would like to come use our brand, right? Lolly was the name of the company. And then they just like took their exact wording that they had and reworded it as, instead of won't accept, as will accept. And they had that done in minutes, right? So now hundreds of thousands of people have seen their rebuttal to this post. But also there's a lot of people on Twitter who are in these kind of small niche communities, and those are the ones you're trying to focus on finding in the first place. So if your brand is, say, you want to find holistic businesses to work with, then you would want to go into Twitter and find those small business communities that are in that market, and then join in that conversation and have something interesting to add for those people, add value to them, and then they follow you, and so on and so on.
Hashtags are great. I think many people are familiar with hashtags on Instagram. And on Instagram, people will put 20, 25 different hashtags on there. Just maybe kind of fishing. I don't know what the strategy might be. We'll probably talk about that in a later throwdown. But I'm thinking
it is fishing.
Yes, I'm thinking about Twitter as a platform. So it's great for people who care about Twitter, but maybe people who don't care about Twitter. Holly, what are you thinking?
So, well, first of all, I think Matt was fishing and he wore the appropriate shirt for fishing. And I love that you were making a strategy recommendation for finding holistic business owners, because that's my niche. So, I felt that punch. I felt it hard. But what I will say is, from what I know about Mark and his business, I think that making sure you have a remarkable experience for your customers. Now, for his platform, this means that he already has that remarkable experience that he sells as a service for real estate agents to continue that discussion with their clients after the closing sale. But imagine you have that same experience with every single partner you work with. You have this remarkable onboarding strategy, this remarkable ongoing partnership, and they want to refer more people to you. They refer more partners to you. You become more of an expert. You expand to that 50th state, including West Virginia. So as you expand your center of influence, you are keeping your partners, you're growing your partners, you're keeping your customers, you're expanding the customer base, because your service is already remarkable. And I feel like that's going to have a bigger growth impact in terms of financial profitability gains, as well as be a lot easier to improve and move the needle in, because he's already an expert in that area, which is why That's my ninja tip for his business specifically this week. And anybody who is not really big on Twitter and you already have customers, your number one incentive is keep those customers, because if you never lost a customer ever again, imagine how much faster your business would grow over time. So that's my strategy for today.
All right. So with that, let's check in with our judge, Mark. What are you hearing now?
Yeah, right. It's both good arguments. I'm liking where everybody's head is at. The headspace is good. I'm right now. Matt's got me just a little bit, but Holly's right in there. She's making solid arguments. So I'm.
Are you seeing how some of these things might work to extend your reach, to reach some potential customers or strengthen those, as Holly was saying, being able to retain those existing customers?
Exactly right. Obviously that's what our entire company platform is built on. And so Twitter notwithstanding, we obviously use a whole wide variety of things, but, bringing it full circle back to Twitter, again, we use Twitter. I no illusions about that, and I can't say it's hugely effective. I can't say it's not hugely effective. It's part of our overall strategy, and like everything else, as you've already said, if you're on a house of cards, it's going to fall down. If you're on a house of bricks, chances are pretty good. So I'd always counter any argument with one platform or another with, no, you need them on all. You need to be on all of them. You need to be wherever that puck is moving to. And there may be a new social media platform coming up the pipe that none of us know about yet. We all better be ready for it, because, whether it's the next incarnation of Parler, or whether I know there's a few new ones that I keep hearing about that I've been kind of going, okay, we better start moving that direction. You got to be around all of them. Twitter's only one facet of that diamond.
Yeah, and I think Parler came out and then it was taken down.
Yeah, gone.
Sorts of the sites there. So kind of a flash in some ways. Now, Matt, at the beginning you were talking about, because I think when people think about strategy, right, about tweeting, they just think about what they're pushing out as content. But you mentioned a lot of, I will say, advanced strategies around listening, and you talked about the hashtags and following people. So I think there's a little bit more involved than just creating that, what is it? Are we up to 280 characters or some amount? And so maybe, there's an amount of time, and Holly mentioned there's a trade-off. You're looking at some opportunity cost. So how much time are we talking about for an average business to devote to this? Are we talking hours a day, a week, a month? What are we looking at?
I think it really depends on the size of your organization. If you have dedicated marketing team, they should be able to have software that is set up to notify them if something gets mentioned or happens that has something to do with your brand, so that they can react to it immediately if they need to. However, you don't want it to be like all consuming of your time. I think posting tools can help with that, where you can preload a bunch of posts into the system and have them get posted regularly. That's a good way to kind of start the conversation, but you have to be thoughtful of, are you using Twitter as a megaphone, or are you using it as a conversation starter? And both are tactics that you can use. I prefer the conversation piece. You're trying to be there to build community. And there's one thing that I think has been missed in this entire conversation that nobody's really talking about. And that thing is, let's say there are people who are not on Facebook who are realtors, which is uncommon, right? Maybe they're not on Facebook, or they're not on Instagram, or they're just on Instagram or something like that. Usually the other alternatives are people are on LinkedIn and they're on Twitter. So usually you've got people who are on Facebook and Instagram, and you've got people who are on LinkedIn and Twitter, right? If we generalize a little bit. So let's say it's 5% of your customers are on Twitter but aren't on the other places that you're contacting them. Does that mean that you should no longer have a relationship with those 5% of people? I would say that maybe that's not the greatest customer experience that you could give to that 5% of your clients.
Well, I'm just wondering, we've talked about some of the different platforms, and Holly, I'm going to give you a chance here to talk about where this time should be allocated, because the opportunity cost is a serious issue that every business needs to be concerned with, where they're allocating their time. And I appreciate that we kind of talked about that elephant in the room, Matt. However, I think there's a different one, and that is really, what are the demographics of the different platforms that we need to look at? So Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all going to have a different profile. So Holly?
Well, first of all, I heard about this whole opportunity cost thing most recently from Matt's book on the hamster wheel. So just saying.
Ouch.
Yeah, I had to throw a punch back because that was interesting on the customer experience with Twitter. So I wanted just to make sure, score back a point there. So for me, I'm not going to answer that question yet, Scott, because I want to say that in terms of opportunity costs and time well spent, when you look at improving your customer retention and the customer experience, it has a major effect. So Mark and his company, with the employees that he works with, it helps them be more invested in the actual service and product. They're going to feel a direct impact because they're going to be part of improving that customer experience. So it helps with employee retention, which we all know is huge. You don't want to lose your employee base. It helps with customer retention because you're trying to amplify the impact you're having. You're trying to make it remarkable and memorable, which then increases how many referrals you're going to get. You're going to get more referrals from other real estate agents that are using the product. You're going to have customers that are raving fans working with those real estate agents that are referring those real estate agents, so their business grows. You're going to have partners that have this incredible experience, so you're going to have more partners, which builds your social credibility. It helps you expand your reach. It helps you serve those customers in a really even higher touch way. So in terms of looking at the Pareto effect of that 80-20 rule, I feel like investing the time in having this remarkable customer experience on all levels has a bigger impact than tweeting.
Mark, let's have you go ahead and throw in some final questions that you have, and then we'll let each Matt and Holly wind up with their concluding arguments before the big decision moment.
So I think the one question I would have equally for both of them is, if you had to, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, right? How important do you think Twitter is on that scale in comparison to, let's say, the other platforms? So let's say a 10 is it is the most critical social tool that you can use, and a 0 or a 1 is it is no social importance whatsoever. And then, back that up a little bit, because there's got to be a good reason behind it.
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying don't tweet. I'm saying there's an opportunity cost to tweeting, and there are other strategies that may help you more. Now, in terms of Twitter, I think Twitter is a 10 when it comes to customer service, when it comes to PR and outreach and building relationships with reporters, and social listening. So those are the 3 ways that I would personally use Twitter in my business. Beyond that, I personally don't really use it for other strategic growth modules because the people I'm reaching out to are typically on other platforms. So it's also very market dependent. And if you do that research, that will help you figure out where you need to invest most of your time in terms of the posting that you're doing.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Matt.
So that kind of makes my point. You definitely should be using Twitter and not tweeting at all. Your Twitter use is really going to depend on your target market. And if your target market is not a heavy Twitter user, maybe it's people under 30, I would be using Twitter a lot more than I would with maybe an over 30 crowd, because a lot of younger people kind of seem to have gone back to Twitter recently. I say younger, I mean, younger than me, but we're not talking 12-year-old people. We're more talking, you're under 30, under 35 kind of crowd. Also, people in really niche communities, hobby communities, people in gaming community, stuff like that. They tend to use Twitter a lot, as well as some alternatives like Discord, Slack, things like that. They're not generally on your platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. However, now if you're trying, like Mark here, and Mark, you're trying to reach a realtor, I would say 99.5% of realtors are on both Instagram and Facebook. Because most people who are in the age range to buy or sell a house are also on those platforms.
Right.
So they're very heavily invested on those platforms. And also LinkedIn seems to be a pretty big up and comer for realtors. And if you are a real estate agent or a brokerage owner right now, you should really be looking at LinkedIn. I know we're here to talk about Twitter, but if you're in real estate, get on the LinkedIn, folks. I keep in touch with people that are not on any other platform that we use, that are clients, potential clients, or referral sources, and I do it in 5 to 15 minutes a day. And I think that is valuable to be able to do it, something that takes such a small amount of time. And I can do it like if I'm going to the coffee shop and they're going to make my coffee, I just hit the Twitter button and I'm like, hey, what's up? Such and such, yada, yada, yada. How's it going? You know, anything you need, right? And I'm done. I don't have to get into a big thing. And in those 5 to 15 minutes, I update 5 Twitter accounts a day. So I think that it is a very small amount of time. It's something you can do quickly. You can get in on conversations. And God forbid there is some kind of disaster that your company has to respond to. Twitter is where it's going to blow up first.
Yes.
For me personally, if there's a news item that's coming out, I'll first go to Twitter and look for it there. And also, when I was on a plane trip recently, last fall, and my bags apparently had a different itinerary than I did, I immediately got onto Twitter to talk to Delta's customer service. So, Holly, that really resonated when you were talking about this customer service, but also in the news platform. And I know that we're going to have another throwdown, and we're going to talk about different advertising platforms, because we really didn't talk today about using Twitter ads. So with that, Mark, we're going to, if this was on ESPN, we'd take a break and have 5 minutes worth of customers right before you give us your final decision to tweet or not to tweet. But with that, we're not going to go into a big commercial break. Go ahead. Tell us. So
I think, again, both Holly and Matt make some incredibly strong arguments for tweeting or not tweeting, and both also found some middle ground in tweet, but then make sure you know who your market is first before you just randomly tweet. With all that being said, I'm going to call it a TKO. But I got to hand it to Holly. She was just a tad more persuasive in understanding how to tweet effectively and not tweeting. And I don't tweet in coffee shops, so Matt took a small hit on that one. So.
Well, there you have it. So
that's right. I'm tweeting this right now.
Ooh, that's right.
It's at Mark Lucas.
What are the other things? So with all these changes coming up, all the different platforms, all the different strategies, stay tuned always to the Business Builder Throwdown. You're going to learn a lot. There are many subjects coming up, but let's wind down today's episode by having Mark go ahead and tell us how people can get a hold of you. What's the best way to reach out and connect?
All right. Best way is our website, silentmarketingsolution.com. You can also call us, 941-404-2591. We are on all the platforms, of course, including Twitter. And at LinkedIn, it's Silent Marketing Solution. The rest of them, it's at Realty Gifts. And that's always, we've got YouTube channels and all the rest of the good stuff. But love to talk to any agents who are looking for a long-term solution to their problems.
Brokers across the country, you can work with them, except in West Virginia. But I know you can crack that market there. Please follow the channel, share it with your friends, but you probably don't want to share with your competition, because you're going to always learn the best stuff right here. Have a fabulous day.